If you're like me, and you got no life and there's nowhere to go, then tune in to the Animation Truman Show. You'll be glad you did.
Boom. And here we are. Okie dokie. Good morning, friends. Don't need to change that. Okay, so let's get to work. Just completed this shot for Salt and Light webisode 8. And I guess this should be best auto. So you can see what's going on. So Gullet swings the doorway to the tent open and looks around. Okay, so the shot I was working on last night, actually here it is complete. I'm not going to really go through a recap on this. I just suffice to say this. After what I did yesterday, the main thing was I drew the hand and the arm, which I knew was going to be essentially rigid, and then manually animated it into position, and then essentially just connected up the shoulder to the forearm. That's really about it. So, and then played around with the timing on the lip sync. So Vespar, what he does is he approaches the tent and says, "Tianara, come forth," and nothing happens. Tianara. Then Gullet comes up. "What's going on?" And he rushes to the tent and flings it open. Okay, so that's where we're at. Let's go back here. And so the gist of it, let's take a look at what might be useful in this shot. Actually, the next shot I do is going to demonstrate how I'm working with the characters in Krita. So I won't get into a lot of that, but just suffice to say that the animation of the tent, all I did was just drew this background really quickly, and then I made a selection of half of it, Control X, Control V, so that the tent is in 2 layers. So if we go here, you can see that the right side of the tent and the left side of the tent are in separate layers. And then just took the liquefy tool and just mushed the pieces out like that. Just quick, easy, effective. Okay, so that's pretty much the gist of it. And as I said, I could break down some more stuff about the characters, but I don't see the point when I can just move on to the next shot and demonstrate it in real time. So, save our work. Probably the biggest thing I'm learning with Krita in terms of maybe advice would be, number one, as useful as the transform masks that we talked about yesterday, as useful as they are, you really do take quite a performance hit when you start adding transform masks and filter masks as well. So if you have a choice, you're better off. Let's say we wanted to. Let's just say we wanted to blur the tent cloth. Okay. There's 2 ways you can do that over an animation. So if we take the Gaussian blur, let's crank the blur up so you can see how blurred it is, right? You can add a filter mask, and that gives you the advantage of you can select the filter mask here in the stack at any time, hit F3, and make changes to it if you didn't completely get it perfect. But if you don't need to do that, if you're very certain about the changes that you're making, it's better to do multi-frame. And when you do multi-frame, what Krita does is destructively goes through, and every cell that's selected will have the same filter applied to it. And so the more you can keep changes baked into the layers, the better for performance. Krita is really good at being performant in terms of having lots of animated keyframes and in terms of having lots of layers. There's not much of a penalty for that. When you get into adding filters and transform masks in the stack, that's when things start to slow down and you're constantly having to wait for the animation cache to refill, which is understandable because Krita's got to calculate the results for every single frame in the whole animation. Okay, so now it appears that there's really nobody here, so I'm going to look at my channel and make sure that this is live. Yeah, it appears that it is, so. Okay, so I'm just not popular today. That's okay, I don't blame you. All right, so what we're going to do in terms of workflow is we're going to actually just keep trudging forward. So let's go over here. The next shot is number 613. And according to, let me go ahead and cut and paste this storyboard shot into Krita, and that way we can just kind of move forward. So Golek, as we see here, one thing I'm going to have to remember is that the doorway to the tent will flat back closed again here at the beginning of this shot, and then let me look at how he gets. Okay, I see. So when it goes back to, basically we cut back to Vespar, and then that way we can, well, no, I mean, actually it looks like Golek swings it open a second time, so there's a lot happening here, and it's pretty quick, so let's just trudge forward. So the way I'm going to do this is exactly the way I did this shot. The whole workflow is going to be really similar, so let's just demonstrate the whole process. This can now be closed. We'll save our work, of course. And so for me, this is the process. I'm going to create a scene, and then I'm going to cut and paste the storyboard into that shot. So this is shot number 613. So that means I can immediately save this as, just according to my naming convention, -613.ping. Now, because there are two layers, Krita will know that I want to also save it as a Krita file, which is going to preserve all the animation and all the rest. Okay, so that's step one. So now we have shot number 613 ready to work on. All right, step two. Well, I want the storyboard image to be there as a guide, but I basically want it to be transparent. So quickly apply the color to alpha filter, which it's using white as the color, and so that gets rid of the background. And then I'm going to go Control M to do a curves operation on the alpha channel, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pump it up like this, and now that just makes it so it's really easy to see. And if I want to turn it down and just use it as a guide, there it is. Okay, so that would be, we'll call this storyboard. Now, one of the things that seems to come up again and again and again is, and by the way, we'll just start naming these. This background has nothing in it, so I can make it either Vespar, Golek, or the soldier. So let's just make it Vespar. Golek, soldier, and we'll leave it at that for now and not worry about the background. Okay, so so I'm going to turn the storyboard down, and what I'm doing is I'm always thinking about, from an animation standpoint, I'm always thinking about two things. Number one, what repeats over long sequences of frames, and number two, what's rigid and therefore could be animated with the free hand path tool, or I'm sorry, not the free hand path tool, the free transform tool. And potentially in some cases, of course, a transform mask. But as I already alluded to, if you're going to use transform masks, it's best to use them to get some animation keys blocked in, and then, hey Max, good morning, and then bake it down at the earliest possible stage. On this shot, actually what I did was turned out to be very useful is this shot and this shot both had quite a bit going on with transform masks, because if you look at Golek, you can see that he is what I'm saying rigid. His head is rigid. Actually, his whole body is too, even though they were in separate layers. And so there's no reason you can't animate that with a transform mask. So that saves you a lot of time, because you're only having to ink and paint him one time, and then you just apply the transforms, which you could do manually with the free transform tool as well. But I will say this: the more I'm doing it, I would say that if you add a utility layer and actually sketch out the timings so that you just have this guide over top of the whole scene, you're probably going to get just as good a result as you would get with the transform mask. And, you know, so you're rolling your own tweens. The key to that not being a time waste is that you kind of have to work backwards and do all the ink and paint on one frame before you start doing the transformations. Otherwise, you have to do the color on every single one of the translated frames. Makes sense? So you're always thinking about that. You're always thinking about what's going to be work that is going to repeat itself. And so there's various stopping points along the way, as you will see. In this case, what we're going to have is, number one, Vespar never changes. He's just a static drawing in the front. Okay, so the way I've been doing this, for me, this seems to be a methodology that works pretty well. So I will take Vespar, I'll say, well, okay, Vespar's got, make sure I got the right brush here. Vespar's got his sort of this, I don't know what you'd call it. I mean, it's kind of a weird little, let's call it a wingdinger. He's got this wingdinger on top of his costume, and I'm going to assume, I don't even know if we've seen it from the back yet, so I'm going to assume it sort of magically flows into the cloth. It's like sewn in, so we're gonna go with it that way. So then, what I've been finding myself doing is try to keep the overall shapes real simple and broad. Just get the thing flowing and, you know, basically feeling good. Okay, and the reason I use red is so I can then use the color to alpha filter to get rid of the red when I'm ready to do so. And so this is going to probably wind up being the ink layer for Vespar. Now in Vespar's case, I could bake all the color into the ink layer because he doesn't really get animated. Does that mean I couldn't? Of course I could. I could get him all colored in so I've got a flat picture of Vespar, and then, you know, do some secondary animation to just make him look like he's alive, you know what I mean? So he moves a little bit. So that's the gist here. Okay. What I think I started to say and didn't finish, as I often do, is that on those previous two shots, you had quite a bit of really stacks of layers where you've got ink, color, and shadows for each of the individual characters. And then what I did was I just closed up each of those groups once I was happy with it. Closed them up, duplicated them all, and then merged the groups so that each of the characters were just a flat image sequence. And then, in this case, what I did was after I had flattened it, I went in and added eye blinks, like right there, Golek's eyes blink right there. And the gritting of his teeth was actually just drawn over top of the flat drawings. So it's this constant back and forth between a more procedural workflow and going ahead and saying, okay, I'm ready to commit to this or that. And one thing I'm seeing here is that I'm not totally thrilled with his body weight, so I'm just going to go ahead and, since we're in the sketch stage, and hitting GE to erase that line, so I want to round that out just a little bit more. Okay, so basically Vespar's ready to go. All right, cool. That's going to be static. We'll come back to him shortly. The soldier in the background, he had the I'm going to look at the, I'm clicking on Vegas right now. So I'm gonna just use this drawing here as a reference. In fact, actually, you know what? This, okay, great leverage opportunity. Let's open up 610 and just steal the soldier from this shot. Why do we need to redo him? That's crazy. Okay, so let's open up 610. He's really just standing there in this shot, so we'll go to 610. So I'm seeing these opportunities all over the place. So this, as you can see, this is all in, still in stacks that include their mouth, their shadows, their ink, blah, blah, blah. So what I'm going to do is, the soldier looks like he doesn't have anything expensive like a transform mask. Sorry about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten him out. I'm going to basically merge the group and flatten the soldier so that I can then take and copy the layer into paste the layer into here. Okay, hold on a second. Why did we get the tent? I made a mistake. Well, that will happen from time to time. Okay, soldier merge. Let's look at this. Okay, so I have to undo that and approach that slightly differently. I do not want the background in there. I do not need the tent in there. Okay, so for our purposes, I'm actually going to merge this group. And the only reason I'm pasting the group as opposed to just the image is because maybe I'll want to keep the animation of the soldier in there for one reason or another. It's no big deal. So now let's redo what I just did. Copy the layer, go here, paste the layer, and now I'm not going to save these changes. Just get rid of it. Now fortunately that last shot was a full HD shot. So that means the soldier has enough resolution here to work for this shot. So now what I'm going to do is, since we really don't need this anymore, hang on a second. Undo. Let me look at what this is. Oh, okay. And that's what I was going to draw. So that's what I want to get rid of. Okay. So now let's assume for the moment that we're going to leave the soldier moving in the shot, just for fun. Probably won't, but let's keep that possibility. So this is a case where I would say, okay, let's go ahead and use a transform mask. And because we don't need to animate the transform mask, we actually just need to reposition him in the frame. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put him here. And actually, as I'm looking at it, and I'm going to make him just a little bit smaller, kind of in the background. Yep, something like that. And save my work. Just every step I save. Okay, yeah. So now this shot by default is 24 frames per second, which is not what we want. So I'm going to assume probably 60 frames is going to be about right. We'll see. We may not need that many, but okay, so now the soldier's good to go. We can turn the transform mask off and actually just turn him off. We don't need him in the shot anymore. Okay? He's there when we're ready for him. So now let's get back to Vespar. Golik's the one who's going to have all the animation in this shot. So I did the red, the pencil. So now I'm going to hit the X key, which I guess I have my colors wrong. So now the X key lets you toggle between foreground and background colors. So now I'm just going to jump to background color. And before I proceed, I'm going to hit Control M. And I'm going to do basically a turn down operation. So usually about halfway on the alpha. And if that's not enough, I can just hit Control F and repeat it. So I think I'll leave it there. B key. Okay, so now I can see what I'm doing a little better. Sometimes when I'm doing this step, I'll go ahead and go to full screen just so I can, you know, see what I'm doing better and not have the distraction of the interface. So, hey, Tiny Sally. So now this, I could obviously be putting the ink on a separate layer, but what I've just been finding is that for the initial getting from the pencil test, I'm not necessarily trying to keep everything flat and keep the color and everything in the same layer, but when I'm getting a shot blocked in, it does seem to be just quicker and simpler to keep the pencil test and the ink on the same layer. So your mileage may vary, and it's not a big deal either way, so do what you want. But we just got to get Vespar kind of blocked in, and this will wind up being the ink layer, so maybe a little bit of a wrinkle there, kind of making sure I've got closed shapes. Excuse me. Okay, tab key, so I'm jumping back out of full screen mode, and now what I'm going to do is I don't need the red lines anymore. Filter, colors, color to alpha, select red. That gets rid of them. And then just to be sure, Control M and clamp it, normally about like this, as you can see. The main reason actually, by the way, to keep the color and the ink in separate layers is because it actually, more often than not, it turns out you want to change the color of the lines. Like I'm drawing them in black, and usually they wind up wanting to be a little bit lighter. So Control G to put Vespar in a group, and we'll go ahead and name the group Vespar, and we'll name this ink. And there we go. So now there are no animation keyframes. So let's turn Golic off, and let's turn the storyboard off. All right, so now we got the color problem. What do we do about color? Well, normally what I've been doing is, yeah, we want to say what word. I've actually just been cutting a shot from the show to the clipboard. And there it is. Now I could take this shot, hit GE, so I'm erasing everything except what I want. And all I need to do is just make sure that all the colors that are important for Vespar are there. And then just move it out of the way. Now I can sample the colors and carry forth. Right? So this is going to be color, which tends to have the abbreviation CLR. There's that, and I can see that I forgot those. Bad move there, Dave. Okay, so probably the better choice would be to, and by the way, did I just put that on the ink layer? I'm not sure, I might have. Okay, so that was dumb, but not the end of the world. Okay, it's actually good. I'm glad that happened, because one thing I've been seeing over and over is when you make a mistake, it's this kind of same old story that trying to fix something that's broken is like way harder than just freaking redoing it. So I'm going to favor doing it this way. Actually, whoops. Sometimes Krita does not seem to be super reliable on changing colors. There we go. Okay, so it's like, all right, let's just fix this correctly. And re-ink that part, so we're not mushing. Because what happens is if I don't just redo the darn thing, then invariably I wind up making compromises on just like anatomy or whatever, because I'm trying to take something that's broken and make it work, and I've done that so many times it's like stupid. Okay, so GE to erase, BE. All right, and so now we can just hit Hit the X key there, Jack. All right, now we'll select this region and do the same thing we did before. Filter, color, color to alpha, get rid of the red, and then do the little cleanup step just to make sure. I want to get all of the pixel data from the red completely out of the frame by cropping it out, effectively clamping it out with the curves tool, so that pixels that are almost transparent but not quite are not actually still in the frame, causing the fill operations to not work right. Okay, so now we can redo F key, fill that. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's grab this color and fill that, this color and fill that, and now we don't need the, so we could just call this color reference. And now we're going to need a shadow layer, which I typically name SHD, boom, and that's always going to be alpha locked. Typically I'm going to hit the G key, make sure it's in raw mode, not curve mode. And in this case, we're probably going to have two shadow layers actually. I would say let's have a broad shadow layer that just encompasses almost everything like that. Okay. And then we'll turn that down to something like that. And then add a second shadow layer where we can get a little more specific. Oops. Now why did it switch to, okay, there we go, G key. I hope Tom doing art doesn't show up and tell me that the physics of the way I'm doing the shadows actually doesn't make sense, because if he did, he'd probably be correct. But I don't care. I just want it to look cool. There we go. I would say Vespar is just about done, with one small caveat. And this again is just me kind of being a little bit sloppy. So as you can see, I'm doing a liquefy operation on the group so that the ink and the shadow, all the layers get filled at the same time. Now one thing I'm noticing is a little bit of artifacting up here. Best way to fix that is to go to your color layer, and if I solo it, you can see what the problem is. Okay, so that's pretty simple to fix. Hit the G key. This comes up often on faces, like you want to get in all the little corners with the flesh tone. So what I'll do is put it in behind mode, and that way, it's not necessary in this case because there's really only one color involved, but that'll fill in any little holes. And if I had a hole down here, I could go like this, and it would only fill in the holes. It wouldn't cover up the color that's already there. Right? Right. There we go. So now we've got Vespar done. And again, speaking of the outline colors, what that might look like is maybe bringing this up to about there, and maybe bringing up just a little bit of red like that. Okay, so now Vespar is done. We are shockingly close here to getting the bulk of the work done, really, for this shot. You know, it's going pretty fast. All right, so this is the Golek group, and we'll call this ink. We're going to do it the same way now. What's Golek going to do? He's going to have, let's go let's do it this way. Okay. Say we're gonna red line it, and I'm gonna hit the insert key. Obviously, by the way, his hat is wrong. So let me just get the basic shape of his hat in there. It's supposed to look like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just block him in as simply as I can. Okay. And I don't care at all about the timing right now. So I'm gonna do insert. And this is a case where maybe, let me solo the layer. Maybe onion skins would be okay. Okay, so what I'm thinking here is it's his shoulder. So let's do 3. So what we'll probably do is have a static shot, and then half a second into the shot we'll have a tween and then a landing. So essentially 3 drawings. At 8 frames per second, if you have 2 tweens, it's kind of amazing how it almost always turns out to be whoops, that's not what I wanted. The motion almost always turns out to be too slow. So this is the actually strike that. Sorry guys. I'm thinking about Golek's costume here. Let's do this. Let's put that there, and then put a tween there. Okay, so here we got this line, this line, this line. Okay, so we're just trying to get the basic movement, and here I'm gonna say, okay, so the error I made right here is that doesn't belong. So sorry about that. So we'll put his ear, because his ear is what I'm kind of anchoring to here in terms of the positioning of his head. So for now, we'll just keep it all very simple, 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 simple. So there's his shoulder here, so you'd have a wrinkle on the back end. His arm comes around like this. And then Golek has this big old collar going on too. All right. That pretty well sums up the animation situation. He's got a little bit of a pot belly, obviously. A little bit of a belly. So that would be sort of the line of his spine, pretty much a profile. It turns around this way. Okay, so now what I'm feeling here is you've got eye, and now we're into 2 eyes. Boom, 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 boom. Golek has basically wrinkles on the tops and bottom of his eyes. Nose, kind of a little bit of a hook nose, not too much though. Yeah, that's actually too much. I don't really draw Golek in a profile very often. It hasn't come up that many times. So, in fact, actually the dominant feature here would probably be his sort of bony cheekbone. So really that pretty much is probably what I want. I don't really need to see his nose on that shot. Okay, now his goatee always has this sort of up thing to it. Like that. Okay. I probably should, on my other screen, I'm looking on my other screen at making sure I know what the dialogue is here, because there's some stuff in the there's some stuff in the storyboards that are not accurate to what actually wound up in the final script. So I need to be a little careful. What's going on? Okay. What actually is happening in this shot is Vespar is saying she was here just a minute ago. So really, this is just Golek responding to Vespar is really all that is. So it looks like we don't need too much in the way of lip sync because the dialogue is happening off screen. Right? There's that. Da 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 da. Okay. So therefore, Shift Alt. Let's just throw these up 1 second. She was here just a minute ago. Boom. So this whole shot is really going to be about, I mean, we'll give ourselves a little bit of a buffer zone, but 32 frames probably is going to do the trick. Okay. Now, a couple things on Golek. B key. Let's just say this is going to be blocked by the tent. And so here, the tent will fall, which we'll put in a separate layer, but basically his arm comes down very quickly, like so. All right. So in the Vespar layer, this can definitely be turned off. That's the soldier with his transform mask. And so, yeah, actually I like that. The soldier, it's almost like he's kind of being careful to stay out of Golek's way. And this, and in just a couple frames downstream, he's gonna say, "This was my fault, my lord," and to which Golek's going to say, "You'll pay with your life." So the one thing I'm noticing here, though, is I'm thinking about the rule of thirds, and this is where my transform mask is turning out to be quite useful. I want to take this guy and actually shift him a little bit this way. Just to keep the shot balanced. Okay, and I am going to always save your work, by the way. Before you merge a group or flatten a layer, save your work first. So this should be able to be a flattened layer, because this is where Krita will sometimes just freeze up, basically. So there we go. That's fine. All good. So now we just have to slap a background in there, ink and paint on Golek, and so for now we can turn these guys back off. And so let's get the 3 shots, or the 3 frames of Golek inked. Do we need the storyboard in there? I think not. So we'll just get Golek inked, and then we'll, let me think about this for a second. We don't need to draw his hand because there's going to be a layer in the foreground with the tent. And what I'll do on the tent is I'll actually draw the tent in the closed position and then use Liquify to animate it back to the squeezed up position. Okay, so this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the session today, is I'm always thinking about that kind of stuff. What can I do working backwards instead of forwards so that it all just, you know, is easier or gives you a better result. So B key, hit the X key. So I've got my ink color, and I didn't take my 1 step. Let me undo that. And I'm going to go Control M and just tamp down the alpha. Okay, and Control F to repeat a filter. Okay, so I'm making a slight tweak on the ear position here. Yeah, that's fine. And I'm going to actually put a little bit of attitude here in his expression, like that. Okay, so now we might as well just swing a line up there because we need something to judge how this collar thing he wears works against the arm, shoulder, sleeve, whole deal. Okay. This is something we don't often see actually with Golek, is there's a little indication here of a hairband thing. Very rarely see it, but actually Golek's got a ponytail. Just so you know. Nope, no good. Okay, this is where I like to rotate the screen so I can just smack a line across. Boom, like that. Whoops. Let's do that again. Okay, that's interesting. I'm hitting undo repeatedly and nothing's happening, so time to save my work. Undo, there we go. Nope, no good. That's better. All right, 5 key. I'll rotate around this way and boom. Ah, that was actually almost good. That's probably fine. Okay, GE. Get rid of all this stuff. Oh, is Maria here today? I want to let you know, Maria, I sent you an email with that microphone information. So if Maria's here, she'll get the message. Okay. N key. Okay, so this, we can just basically do that. Five key. And then we're going to have an indication of those yellow bands he's got here. And then, of course, they're going to be falling back here as well. Boom, boom, boom. Maybe we'll get just a little indication of the other one. Okay, so for our purposes, we do want to put in an indication of where his hairline is for coloring purposes. Okay, now, can we get any leverage here? I would say no, because, again, trying to take this shot and repurpose it, the ink is just, the only thing that really stays kind of the same-ish here is the collar, but it's still going to change enough that just doing another drawing probably makes a lot more sense. So there it is. Whoops. And we'll try to follow the contour here a little bit on the costuming. Cool. I'm going to turn the skins off. Okay, that's going to be that yellow band. Boom, boom. Get the... I'm leaving his head and face for last. Basically, I'm doing the easy stuff first. Something like that. Okay. Boom, boom. All right. Back to full screen. Save our work. Don't like that. He's an older guy, so he's going to have a little bit bigger ears. It's a little strong. Golik's not happy. He is not a happy camper. Not at all. Now remember, this is a one-frame tween. This is like not perfect in terms of the likeness, but it's a one-frame tween, so I'm not going to sweat it. This shot has to be perfect. And basically, I'm going to say it looks pretty darn close to it as far as I can see. So, nobody's talking much today, I see. Maybe nobody's here anymore. I don't know. Or maybe I'm so... this work is so enthralling and amazing that everyone is struck speechless. I know how it is, people. Okay. Now this is actually, let's do it this way. Okay, so this is where I can get a little leverage. The only thing that tells you much at all about the position of this hat is actually the little jewel on it, which you can't see in this shot. So for that reason, let's just go Control-Shift-V, and then smack that in there like that. Go to the next frame, Control-Shift-V. Same situation. Whoops. This jewel is what's going to give us the clue in terms of what's happening. And I'll just kind of eyeball it, right? He does not look happy. Not at all. Okay, so yeah, his hairline here needs to be put in there so we get good closed shapes. But basically, I'm pretty happy with what it looks like. So, all right, Tab key. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the red lines. Okay, so what I'm going to do is grab all of the frames so that I can then do a filter, color to alpha. We're going to get rid of red. Multi-frame means it's going to do it to all 3 of the drawings. Number 2 is going to be Control M, again multi-frame. We're going to modify the alpha. We're just going to clamp it a little bit so that we're getting any pixels that are almost gone and make them actually gone. Okay? Now, we can turn our other, well, we don't need the storyboard image can be deleted. That's not helping us anymore. So rather than jumping into coloring Golik, and okay, I see another thing. The soldier should actually be here. He should be on the bottom. And Vespar should be on the top. Duh. I like it. Okay, so now Vespar could say, let's go ahead and, if you got a sequence that doesn't have any animation keys, just hit Control Insert so that there is an animation key. So now Vespar is going to say, well, she was here a minute ago. She was here a minute. So somewhere right about there, I'm just going to completely wing this. I'm just going to do a major liquefy and just see what I can do with it. 1. Okay, stop everything, stop everything, stop everything. I went and I hit Control Insert and the keyframe did not take. Why it's not taking, I really don't know. So I'm going to save my work. That's a little bizarre. Oh, I know why. I'm sorry. I forgot that Vespar was already in groups. So here's what we're going to do. I want to animate Vespar. There's 2 ways we could do it. Number 1 would be to insert a, we can insert an animation keyframe in each layer at the beginning so that we can then make modifications to the group. And that would be that. Now, I've already altered the color of his ink lines and I'm happy with it. So instead, what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to lock the group, duplicate it, and then the unlocked version, I am going to merge the group. And this should be quite quick. Okay, and so now this is just a static drawing. There's no animation keyframes or anything. So I'm going to go Control Insert. If I wasn't 100% sure on the color and whatnot for Vespar, then I wouldn't bake it down yet. But since I am sure, I'm just going to turn this group off and lock it. So now if I need to get back to all the constituent layers for Vespar, I can do it. But for now, basically, we're done with all the layers. And so now, since this is some pretty simple secondary animation I want to add, I'm just going to, it's just a body weight shift because he's talking off camera, right? And it almost feels like Vespar's shrinking back a little bit, doesn't it, from Golik? Okay. There's one thing I'm seeing, though, that's kind of problematic. And that's that we're losing his top. This gets back to what I was saying yesterday about making sure you've got a big enough canvas. Okay. But it's okay. That's going to be really easy to fix super quick. Okay. And I'm just going to do it with hand painting. So B key, I'm going to sample that color. And I'm just going to make sure, actually, let's use a brush that we know is going to be fully opaque too. Okay. So sometimes it doesn't pay to use fancy schmancy tools. It's like way easier to just hand paint it and be done with it. The whole thing takes 40 seconds, right? That little bit of red that you can see, you know what, I don't even care. You could fix it this way. You could grab this. Let me think about how I would do this. Honestly, you could reduce the saturation, but the problem is that you're probably going to affect this gray color because I don't know that the gray color is truly gray. It might actually have some color in it. But let's turn down the saturation and see what happens. It looks like it didn't harm anything. So yeah, we're good. All right, so I'm going to grab this color, B key, go back to my pencil brush that I was using for inking and just touch up this top. So to be fair, this did take more than 40 seconds, but basically, you know, no big deal. Okay, so now we've got Vespar having this little shift in body weight. So, well, she was here a moment ago. Okay, problem. This is really important for animation purposes. You realize that from the audience's perspective, we just threw away a lot. Reason being that Vespar's body weight shift, Golik's reaction, and the soldier's reaction all happened at the same time. Now, Golik and the soldier, I think, are okay. But the problem is Vespar shrinking back a bit. We need to take these guys and move them forward in time. So Shift Alt. So let's jump forward to, say, frame 15. And let's just do the same thing here. Because if you don't make it a sequence, you said a minute ago. If you don't make it a sequence, you're basically robbing the audience of digesting what's going on. So here at the beginning, we're going to have half a second of silence, and then Vespar saying, well, she was here a minute ago. And I would say maybe Vespar's actions could even be a couple frames later. Well, she was here a minute ago. Uh-huh. And I'm going to take Golik, and I'm going to take everybody and move them downstream 2 frames. This guy, whether his reaction should be a little slower or not is debatable. Now, I like that. That feels pretty good. Okay, cool. So that's done. Any complaints? Nobody's complaining. All right, so now what we're going to do is a couple aspects of background. All right, so let's go ahead and put a layer down here and put it in a group. And the group's going to be called BKGD. All right, so here's what we're going to do. First of all, let's put in a sky. All right, so I'm going to solo the layer with the tilde key, grab our sky color, which for this sequence has been a slightly greened out sky. So fill that. All right, and now I'm going to go to white, hit the brush, get the cloud brush, turn the opacity way the heck down, and let's just kind of smack a few clouds in the sky. Just a little something to break that sky up. Boom. Okay. All right, and then we're going to put the tent in front of it. So the way we're going to do the tent is, let's grab our plain old pencil, and for our purposes, I'm going to actually go ahead and go Control V and sample that color right there. So that's just a reference color. Okay, so now what we're going to do here is hit the G key and block in this whole thing. Okay? Now, yes. That's a little too strong of a contrast, so I'm actually going to go let's just put some variety in it. Okay, let's grab that color and then just a little bit darker. Same thing here. We're just trying to introduce essentially some noise. And then, but we want to know what the center point's going to be. Okay, so this is going to be the center point. Excuse me. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing I did in the other shot. I'm actually going to draw a line right through this as a selection and go Control X, Control V. Now both halves of the tent are in 2 different layers. Okay, so now we know when Golik's arm comes down, this is where the tent's going to land, right? So we'll call this tent What is this? Is this the left or the right? Okay, so we'll go tent right, and this is going to be tent left. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, we don't need selection since they're all in their own layers now. So what we're going to do is on these two layers, tent left and right, looks like tent right might not be pinned to the timeline. Okay, this is where it's going to land, so I'm going to hit Control Insert here, Control Insert here. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to work backwards. This is going to be liquefy. Oh no, we have a disaster on our hands. I just realized. I mean, it's one of those little chimpy things that I could probably get away with if I wanted to. Okay, strike that. I was wrong. I thought that I had I was thinking about the earlier storyboard, and I actually thought I had this wrong in terms of that Golek is opening it up with his right arm, and now we're using his left arm. You could play around with flipping the whole canvas to solve that, actually, but in this case, let's leave it at that for the moment. What I'm going to do is just do that, and I'm really going to let this distort a lot. Okay. And then obviously this drawing needs to be copied back to here. Okay. So now the problem that we have is really on the right hand side. And I think I'm gonna just kind of excuse this. Maybe put a little distortion like that. And then we're going to work backwards here from this to this to this. Okay, let me make sure something didn't copy erroneously. Okay, so that's our landing spot. And again, here I'm going to make this less exaggerated than it is in the prior shot. And I'm going to actually make that more extreme so that basically there's an unseen arm that appears to be moving one frame earlier than the rest. So hence, I'm going to let that come down just a little bit. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go back here and just a little corrective measure there. Little corrective measure there. And now, of course, we actually need let's just grab a really dark, not completely black, but pink, and fill that area in right there. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Apparently I didn't make it big enough. Okay, so yeah, that is going to have to be animated, so no big deal. Let's take Vespar out. Yes, okay. So that's pretty ridiculous. I did not realize that that was that distorted because it was covered up by Vespar. So, no big deal. Just do a little more liquefy. Obviously, gravity would have it be more like that. And I think here, we'll go ahead and just put a faint indication of the way it would wrap around his arm. I mean, why not, right? Cool. All right, so this thing, we're going to have to animate. So let's go Control Insert. And then let's just look at the frames. Yep, there we go. So this is going to be GE to erase out of it. Whoops, go forward 1 frame, erase out of it, go forward 1 frame, make sure it's clean. And I think we're at the place where the only thing left is the color on Golik, actually. So the background, that's our reference. Yeah, well, you can see that let me actually turn that back on. And then I'm going to go GE and just erase all this out of here so that I can then go Control M and do a slight mod on the sky here. Pump up the saturation a bit, and we're probably gonna have to do a slight hue shift. There we go. Yeah, close enough. I mean, we're jumping from one shot to another, but just to make it pretty consistent, right? So that reference image can now be deleted. And if we put Vespar back in, oh yeah, not the copy. I mean, you know, not the heavy layers version of Vespar. I like it. I like the way the shot's coming together. How we doing on time? Hour and 13 minutes. I can't believe this. Holy crap, that's kind of shocking. Being able to knock out a 4-second complete animated frame in under 2 hours is a really, really good thing. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to, once again, take a screenshot. And there it is. So that screenshot, I can shrink it down pretty small, smack it over here, and then hit G so that I can really just, all I need is just the key colors. Everything else doesn't matter. As long as I can sample the colors, I'm good to go. So let's take the background out. Let's take the soldier out. Let's take Vespar out. And now we're going to rock and roll on some color, baby. All right. Boom. Color. CLR. Let's move that below the ink. Go back to frame 1. Control insert. So there's an animation keyframe. And now, hopefully, we won't hit too many leaks. Okay, there is a little bit of an issue. Actually, right here. That's the color we actually need. Otherwise, we're not going to, we're effectively baking the shadows in, which is not what we want to do, because he is going to have a shadow layer. So I'm going to go ahead and put in all the yellow first. Just to get that out of the way. And you know, I'm a little uncertain on that color, but I guess that is the true color. So we'll go with it. All right, so sample that. Boom, boom. Okay, so you can see we've got to get this yellow part there, back in there. Okay, let's grab the hat. Fill tool. Boom, boom, boom. Let's grab the yellow. Okay. Back here. Let's grab that color. So we got a little touch up there we need to do. Flesh tone. Boom, boom. I'll fix the hair here in a minute. Not a big deal. Okay. And I'm going to actually just make that yellow. Whoops. Okay. So now let's grab his hair color. And here we've got leaks. So I guess it's leaking out his ear. fill that. That was fine. B key, fill that, fill that. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll manually deal with his whites of his eyes. Oh, that was a little sloppy, wasn't it? We'll manually deal with the whites of his eyes, and then we'll clean up this flesh tone. Okay, so flesh tone, switch to behind mode so that I can hit the G key and actually just lasso this whole thing, and any rogue pixels that aren't filled in will now get filled without screwing up anything that you want to keep. Boom. Okay. Let's continue with shadows. SHG, G key. Okay, this is going to be the standard shadow layer. So we'll set that to the usual 13, 14, something like that. Alpha lock it. Little bit of a shadow under the lip there, or under the edge of the hat, and frankly, I probably don't need a second shadow layer in this case because he's out in the sun. I mean, on the other shot, we were looking in from the tent. So, is that my... Yes, this can be deleted. Okay. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so now this is kind of important. Hit Control Insert, and this is going to be a straight insert, straight insert, insert. Okay, so whatever we do here is going to be repeated here, obviously. Very, very simple. Okay, this keyframe needs to be deleted. And that's the one I already did, and this is the one we land on. Oh, Golik. Golik, Golik, Golik. One of my favorite characters. I love Golik. I really, really do. I guess that should all be lost in shadow, actually. Okay, obviously the sunlight's coming from sort of above and behind him. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another shadow layer. We'll see how this works out, but the whole idea here is just to kind of smack everything. There, I would say. Yep, and then we're just going to put that half of him in shadow. And this layer, I'm going to blur it a little bit. So Control, well, not Control F. Let's just do Filter, Gaussian Blur. Probably about 10 pixels, yeah. 10 pixels. Now we'll just smack it down and dial it in. That feels pretty good. Friends, I think we're done. I think we are done. Let's... No, we're not. Yeah, this shadow here is a little winky. So GE. I didn't mean to do that. Okay. Control R. This is shot This is shot 613. Careful there, Dave. You don't want to overwrite the last shot you did. And by the way, I can't actually see that well on this screen. Yeah, 613. So this needs to be 613 dot. Ping images, 32 frames. Okay, up. We got a problem. We got a problem. This somehow got turned back on. Control R, re-render, done. Okay, that's it. So that's pretty good. A shot that doesn't have a, there's actually a fair amount of animation in this shot. So 2 hours from start to finish is pretty good. I'm happy with that. Let's go back over to the show here. And this right now is actually the storyboard image. So let's get rid of that. Push everything else downstream. And we're going to import scene 613. There it is. Render. And there's nothing there. Okay, that's a little problematic, so let's jump back here and see where I fouled up. I must have made a mistake. Control R. I'm going to put that up on the other screen. Scenes 613, render. Huh. That's weird. Image sequence. I wonder. There they are. Sorry. Yeah, that's a little strange. It's just basically the Windows Explorer didn't update. A little bit silly. Okay, this is 8 frames per second. Should be 32 frames. We smack it in there. We turn off resampling, which I won't bother to explain at this moment. And now we can sit back and see how the whole thing's feeling. So that's where I was like, Tianara, come forth. Tianara. What's going on? Okay. So this shot goes too long, obviously. Boom, boom. So that should be about there. Basically, once Vespar looks over and blinks. So. Okay, and this shot. Okay, I'm going to make a change. What I'm going to do, this is an editorial thing. All right. This, what really should happen here, this shot would flow better if it wasn't so static. So this is something you want to think about when you're editing. Okay, I'm going, all right. I know that this is going to be smoothed out by the fact that we hear Vespar's voice. Okay? But really, wouldn't it be better if we start the shot right out there with him moving? A minute ago, there's our shot. And then go back to this shot and have Vespar start saying that line at the end of this shot. So, she was here just a minute ago. See, that flows way, way, way better. So let's just deal with it. Save this. Let's pull up 612. And let's go to Vespar. Where is Vespar? Yes. There's the Vespar merged. It's just a single single layer, very simple. Yep. So I'm going to put Vespar now in a group. and put the mouth on a separate layer so that it doesn't interfere with the blinking eyes. If I bake it in, it's going to be kind of stupid. So so he turns his head and starts saying, G key. We're doing anime style lip sync, and there we can see how the freehand path tool is one of the dumbest tools in the history of paint programs, because the way it does that smoothing that seems to be really good at wrecking almost anything you do in terms of drawing. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to put this as a almost closed. So that's the old anime sequence. Come on, what's going on? Stop everything, save your work. Anytime anything really strange goes on, it's my fault in this case because I accidentally switched the animation curves from the timeline. My mistake, but actually, well, she was here just a minute ago. I like that. I actually think I'm just going to go like that. Let's punch up his mouth a little bit here, because it's a little light in the earlier frames. And so here, so yeah, so Vespar, I guess what I'll do is I'll just go like this, just to punch that up a little bit, and then move this back to frame 1. A key. Then we got the lip sync, and now what I want to do is, normally I would make this transparent, but I think what I want to do in this case is just a color mod. So I'm going to go Control M, and what we're going to do is we're going to punch up a little bit of the red. You see that? A little bit of the red, and then a little bit of the overall tonality of it. Multi-frame, let's just go with it. I'm trusting in God and luck that this is going to turn out to have been the right choice. It's a little bit saturated, so let me go Control M again and just tamp down the saturation, and we'll be okay. Yeah, something like that, and I do feel like maybe just a little bit lighter. So normally I achieve the same thing by making it black but semi-transparent, but the thing is that the mouth is actually covering up another mouth that is in the ink layer, so rather than fighting with that and going through and trying to erase it and everything, I think not. So Control R, so this is 612, we'll render that. And save our work. Okay, so that just helped. That helped the edit, I think. So now, and by the way, I'm aware that the sky color is a little off on that prior shot. You know, just a minute ago. And then he moves back. Golik looks at him. See, I like that. Golik's like, what is going on? Swings it open. She was here just a minute ago. That actually makes me chuckle. So, okay, good. All right, that's it, guys. We're done. We have punched up a couple shots and done one from scratch, all in the space of an hour and a half. Well, that's what we want. We want to be able to crank out these shots a little quicker than not. So in this case today, actually, 612 and 613 have both been done today. from scratch, essentially. So, yeah, that's seven seconds of show in about 3 hours. So, you know, I mean, it's not bad. Not amazing, but it's not bad. So anyway, that's it for now. I'm going to sign off. Hope you guys liked it. Hope it was useful. And as